Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another great guest on. Now, as many of you that watch and listen to the show, you know that my background is accounting and finance. So it's always a pleasure to have other accounting and finance professionals on, especially when, you have that like-mindedness about being able to take what we know and understand in finance and to help non-finance individuals gain that financial literacy so they can start making smart money decisions when it comes down to business, whether it's a career or whether it's a business owner themselves. So I want to welcome to the show Arno, and he is coming from Australia. So thank you so much for, I guess, working through the time zone for us to be able to do this interview.
Right, no worries, Daryl. Pleasure to be on, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we jump into your business that focuses on increasing and improving financial literacy, tell us a little bit about your background before getting into this business.
Thanks, Daryl. So I'm a chartered accountant by profession. I was in corporate finance for 15 years. Before I left finance, I was the CFO at the top business school in Africa, and that's kind of where I developed my passion for financial literacy. So very strong at finance, but I actually thought about stepping out of finance and actually helping people to better understand the numbers. So that's my career. I left South Africa in 2016, and I moved to Australia with my wife and my two kids, and so that's where I'm now.
Gotcha. Now, how was that transition? I mean, going from working in the corporate space to, shifting your attention to financial literacy. I mean, I guess were there any hesitations that you had about that, or was it when that idea came up, you were like, nah, it's a no-brainer, I'm going for it?
I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's a lot to do with my passion and my drive and my purpose, my why. I think my purpose is to help non-financial people understand the numbers, because I mean, most people fear the numbers. They don't like talking about it because they don't understand it. And I think the other problem is probably the way it's been taught to explain to them. It hasn't been explained in a lecture-based way, parrot learning way. So I want to change that. I want to make it fun, interactive, easy to understand, and ultimately, what financial literacy should do is to help managers and decision makers make better decisions. Because we all want to help improve profitability and cash flow, but a non-financial person doesn't know what they're looking at and how to do it. So going back to your question, I think it's a passion, it's a purpose of mine, and that's why I left corporate.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, so were you making that shift before you moved from South Africa to Australia, or were you still in the middle of, making that transition to financial literacy while you were
Yeah,
moving?
yeah. So when I moved to Australia, I was still in a finance role. I was a financial controller for an environmental business. And then I got this opportunity of running an educational business that focuses financial literacy. So it just happened to come about all through LinkedIn, because I'm very active on LinkedIn. I believe it's the best networking tool, and that's just got found for an opportunity which I took on, and it just happened to be aligned to my purpose. So I was in finance still. I'm also I'm kind of like a jack of all trades when it comes to accounting and finance. I'm also a Power BI developer, and I do a few other stuff as well. So I kind of I'm not just about the numbers. I like to think a bit broader, but now my focus is purely on financial literacy.
Awesome, awesome. Now, one of the things that I always find to be interesting is when you come up with an idea, and even when it comes down to something that you're passionate about, it's one thing to, just to do it outside of what you're doing, whether it's you're doing full time, but when you start to actually build a formal organization around it, what was that process like?
When you start, we are a startup. So when you're a startup, you kind of end up doing a lot of things yourself. So you have to have your hands on everything from operations to marketing to general management to finance to you name it. So as a startup, it's always difficult. You don't have the luxury as a small business of having access to expensive resources. You can just outsource things. And so you end up doing a lot of your stuff, because I mean you put blood, sweat, and tears in the first couple of years as a startup to reap the reward. So it's very challenging. But I think the most important thing is you need to have a clear vision and direction. You need to understand why you're doing it, what problems are you solving, what's the pain points, who's your unique customers, and And it's all about storytelling. You need to use practical examples. I mean, you think about like a manager sitting in a board meeting room and he gets asked a financial question, and we need to make a decision that's got a financial impact. And 9 out of 10 times they don't understand the impact. Like, for example, if you discount your sales, ultimately you're discounting your profit margins. So guys are running sales and marketing initiatives and campaigns, but they don't necessarily understand what the impact is on the business and profit margins. Because just because you're selling more doesn't mean you're making more profit margin. So those are the kind of what I call the financial acumen literacy that the guys should be knowing in business. But in order to do that, you need to tell the story. So you need to set practical examples, telling people in reality what the typical pains are. And the other thing is also the point of differentiation. I think that's important because the way finance, typical finance for non-financial managers courses, they're all lecture-based. They're very theoretical. You've got thick textbooks that people look at and they forget. So the way we run workshops is I run the workshops. I'm not just an academic. I'm an actual guy that's been in the field. I've got commercial finance experience. I run virtual workshops. So I get people in a room, different people from all over the world, or different same people from a corporate team into a room, in the virtual room. We've got live polls. I ask polls. I've got pre and post assessments. I've got breakout rooms where we have discussions. And what I'm doing is I share knowledge and then I facilitate discussions, because I believe the best way to learn finance and accounting is to actually see it and experience it, not by talking technical jargon, because people will forget it. It's like an Excel course. If you don't practice it, you forget it. So we just got a different way of teaching. And and I happen to run most of the workshops because I enjoy it and I like meeting new people. That's key for any business. Is you need to network, you need to engage, you need to be the face, people need to see you. So our workshops are very different the way we run it.
Nice. Now, when people start to, engage with the workshops, and, you said you go through kind of whatever the topic is, the lesson, and then engage in discussion. Do you find that people feel comfortable enough to engage in the discussion or admit when, hey, you know what, this may be something that I've heard it talked about, but I don't really understand it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because we do pre-course assessments. And so it's like the average is about 40%. So we ask 10 simple questions about finance and accounting, and the average pass rate 40%.
Wow.
So guys are coming into a room with little to no knowledge of finance and accounting. So it's very intimidating. People feel intimidated. They fear it. They don't feel comfortable talking about the numbers. But that's where we are different, because we remove that fear. And it's in the way that we teach it. We don't sit there with slides and a textbook and asking them to read through stuff. We actually simulate business transactions. So our flagship product is Finance and Accounting Made Easy. It's been taught to 20,000 people across the world. We've got it now in Australia. And the way it's been taught is it's a virtual gamified way. It's like a board game. We use colors. And we explain simple accounting concepts with the use of visuals. And, we simulate typical business transactions that the business owner would encounter during the normal course of business. And just by explaining key concepts, and by them trying to discover the answers themselves, they're actually learning accounting. And by the end of the 2-day program, they actually compile their own P&L balance sheet and cash flow statement. And that's amazing. And we do it in record time. It doesn't take weeks. It takes a couple of days, and they actually understand it. So it's the way that you need to teach it. It's a very visual way, because it's like we always use the example: if you change your tire, or if you've never changed your tire before, and you need to change it, how would you go about it? Would you go to the library and take out a thick textbook and start reading up on it? Or would you jump onto YouTube and watch a quick video? We jump on YouTube because we are visual learners, most of us, So, and I think accounting should be taught visually, and that's most of our workshops are like it. It's very practical. We use practical examples, and it's interactive. So I sit there and it's not just a self-paced online course where you sit there watching a screen for 8 hours and then you walk away. it's interactive. I'm in the room, ask me questions. We use practical examples. We also customize it according to their business, so it's relevant to their business. So yeah, those are all the different points of differentiation that's important.
And that's an interesting point. You said that, the pre-test, or is that like 40% of the people get a passing grade on that? Like, I would not have, based on the way that I guess you say corporate culture goes, where, that's a surprising statistic when you think about, for a lot of the non-finance people, I mean, their performance is rated on how well they lead the business to perform against some financial metrics. But if they don't understand it, it's just like, wow, half of your compensation is based on something you don't even know how to drive.
100%. And that's why it's vital for future success of a business, is for their managers, especially managers' decision making, is to understand the numbers. Because if you don't understand it, how can you put budgets and forecasts together? And how can you drive the future strategy of a business? I mean, at the end of the day, the numbers don't lie. The numbers tell you the real story. And if you don't understand what the story is telling you, then how can you plan forward? So, and I think there's a disconnect there. So I want to close that gap, but I want to do it in a different way. I don't just want to do it through the typical lecture way. It's just doing it in a different way.
Awesome.
I think it should be fun. I think learning accounting finance should be fun. I like learning, so any new skill that I learn, I try and motivate myself that, okay, I should be excited about it, because it's going to make me different. It's going to give me a new skill. It's going to empower me in something, and that's the way finance and accounting literacy should be.
Awesome. So when people take they come to take some of your courses and they engage with some of the programs, what's some of the feedback you usually hear from people after they finish?
Well, the feedback we've had from the Finance and Accounting Made Easy program is that the guy would say, they would typically say, they've moved from, they're starting to think like an accountant, which they never did. They never knew they could. Because I think it's important. I always say that accounting and finance is the language of business. And even Warren Buffett says that as well. And if you can't speak the language, if you don't understand it, how can you won't be able to, you may not be having the right conversations. So that's the one thing that always stands out. The guys said that they can actually think like an accountant. Some people are surprised at the balance sheet balances. They never knew. And other people say it's learning that they've taken away in 2 days that they can use for the rest of their life. I mean, even their personal life. If you think about counting, you're also using your personal life. You've got a budget. You need to manage your salary, your income, your expenses going out. So that's accounting. You need to account for your transactions and show where you are against what you've actually budgeted for. So those are the things. I mean, we get a lot of feedback. A lot of people also say it's not intimidating. It's a fun way of learning accounting, and it's here to help them understanding the numbers in a different light. So that's kind of typical feedback we get.
Awesome. So where can people find you online, or how can they find you on social media to find out about, what's going on with your organization? What are the new courses or new programs and opportunities for them to engage?
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. So on LinkedIn, you can find me on Arno Wakfer. I post quite often. I do write articles from time to time. And then also on our website, which is www.educatio, so that's education without an n.com.au. We've got all our financial literacy courses on there. We also do data literacy, as well as some Power BI training, and there was advanced Excel workshops. But our primary focus is financial literacy, because that's our vision, is to help people make better decisions through financial literacy. So that's where people can look out for me.
Gotcha. And I guess before we move on from that, I did want to ask about, the Power BI and the data aspect of it, because I think we're being introduced to just mountains of data. I mean, they're with technology that's able to collect so much data to where sometimes I think people don't really know what to do with it. So what can they expect from the big data, the Power BI kind of sessions that you guys offer as well?
Yeah, so our Power BI courses and data literacy is aimed at finance and accounting professionals, and it's all to help them become data literate. And what I mean by that is that they need to understand what to do with data and how to communicate it in a business. Also, what insights they can generate it from it. And the drive behind it is that as a CFO myself, I always used to just look at management accounts on a month-to-month basis. And I never really understood the underlying drivers of business. How did that data come about? And so that's the great thing about Power BI, as an example, is it enables you to take sales data, for example, and to start analyzing where there are opportunities. For example, some location may have dropped in sales. Other locations may have increased in profit margins, and et cetera, et cetera. And some products and customers as well. So you just look at the sales number, but you're looking at it from a different perspective. You're looking at the drivers that led up to the sales number. Now, in order to do that, you need to understand the data, which management reports don't necessarily do. And if you've got, so for me, Power BI or business intelligence for that matter is a new skill for F&A, because it just helps them to get closer to decision makers and tell them why the business performed the way it performed. Because the traditional P&L and all those balance sheets, it just tells you the story of a business in a specific point in time. And as a business owner or decision maker, you want real-time information as much as possible. But the problem is there's data and there's too much data. So you need to be able to understand how to clean up data and how to transform data, and how do you communicate? How do you communicate it? And we communicate that through storytelling, through data visualization. So for me, that's just it's a value creation factor that we need to deliver to get closer to business. So that's kind of what we aim for.
Awesome. So one of the last questions I want to ask is, when you start thinking about, where you've been in your career, where you've been with your organization, and just the people that you've been able to help and the impact that you've been able to make, what would be, 2 pieces of advice that you would share with someone who works in an industry that's non-finance person, but really needs to start grasping finance? Like, what advice would you give to them?
All right. So I think, speaking from my own experience, when I was a CFO, I didn't necessarily communicate financial literacy in the business like I should have. And the reason for that is, by nature, I'm very detailed. And the way I explain things, it's not necessarily jargon free. For example, if I talk about prepayments as an example, I would assume a non-finance person knows what prepayments is. But 9 out of 10 times they look at you like, okay, and then they look away, they shy away. And when they shy away, then you've lost them. So, and I think that's probably a lesson I've learned is stop losing people when you talk about finance. Get them to understand the language of business. Because as soon as you do that, you have better conversations and you all get onto the same path. But I think a lot of non-finance people in business do feel intimidated by the numbers. So, I think it's just opening up the doors to say, listen, we're here to help. We want to simplify financial literacy for you, because we want you to make better decisions, because we're all in this together. We're one team. We all want to achieve our targets, our strategy, and we want you to have the confidence that when you make decisions, you understand the financial implications thereof. So for me, it should be driven by the CFO. The financial literacy awareness should come from the CFO. But it all boils down to leadership. I suppose just the way that's communicated to the business to get people to buy in. Because if you publish a non-financial course in a business, not necessarily everyone's going to want to go to, because they feel intimidated. So the $1 million question is, how do you make it less intimidating? And I think it's the way that you teach it. You make it relevant to your business. You don't go and take a book out from the library and start reading debits and credits and all those things, because you'll lose them. You make it relevant to your business. You take your business transaction, how revenue is generated, and you talk through how revenue is generated and how it's accounted for. And that's actually what we do in our finance and accounting made easy courses. We take a business transaction, we customize our program according to it. So when we sit with managers, they exactly know how the accounting treatment works in their businesses, from recognizing revenue recording expenses from AR to AP to inventory to deferred income, all those things. They understand how it's accounted for. So when they receive their financial reports from the CFO or from the finance team, they actually understand how to read and interpret the results.
Wow, I think that is amazing. So Arno, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your insight and educating us a little bit more on Educo, and helping us understand the awesome work that you're doing. I will definitely include some links so people can find you on LinkedIn and find you guys online, to see the awesome things that you have going on. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Terrell.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.